let's talk about ready-made cosplay. I have no problem with it, and I know many people don't have any problem with ready-made cosplay, but do you think the direction that cosplay is going in as it gets more popular and we're getting more people coming in that they may like cartoons and anime and sci-fi nerd culture stuff, but they're not super invested in it, so they're not going to invest the 30 hours to put together a cosplay. They'll get ready-made cosplay, or they'll do the bare minimum, like have an accessory or a t-shirt that from that series, and then they'll
Hmm.
project themselves and they'll be able to blow up on social media with that. Do you think that's a direction we're going to see more of? More ready made cosplay, more people who are putting in low effort cosplay? Or do you think we're going to see a renaissance in those that like to alter and create their own cosplay?
I honestly think it'll be the latter. Like I've seen a whole lot more people, especially like when I was in the Steven Universe fandom, when that was a big thing. I feel like the biggest thing was really taking these cosplays and making them your own, like bringing this like 2D super cartoonish design and then fleshing it out into a 3D design with your own elements. Like that was a big thing. And I think it's something that's spilling out almost into other fandoms and other things. Like it's something that I've done in other cosplays besides my Steven Universe cosplay. And I've seen, at least from the sphere I'm in, like the people I tend to follow a little bit more of, the crafters, the sewists, just because they inspire me a little bit more than, people who just look good in costumes. So I might be biased because that's the sphere I'm in. Um, but it does impress me a lot when people can do that, and it's inspired me a lot in my own cosplays, and it's made me feel happier with my cosplays to make it my own. Um, but I do know that in like other spheres of cosplay, like especially the more mainstream, like the stuff that ends up in like the more our news journal websites where they're like, look at this person's cosplay. They're the best cosplayer ever. And like top 10 cosplays that we saw at Comic Con this weekend, like those articles. And I hate making cosplay a competition because I grew up so much as like somebody who thought of cosplay as a competition. Like I wanted to be the best cosplayer. I wanted to be the number one cosplayer of this character. And it took a lot of time to grow out of that mentality so I could actually enjoy cosplay a little bit more. Um, but it's a little bit more infuriating to see because I think still like the mainstream or like the people outside of the cosplay community, but still kind of spectate or go to cons and they're not cosplayers themselves, but they like admire cosplayers, or they follow cosplayers online. They do still tend to have that eye of like cosplay is a competition. You have to aim to be the best. You have to aim to be better than everyone else. You have to aim to be like the top 10 best cosplayer in this room. So it's kind of infuriating to me to see because I feel like we've gotten better like inside the community, not being so gatekeepy and competitive. But it's still like really frustrating to see when people comment and they're like, "Oh, your cosplay is better than this person's," or like this isn't as good as this other person's cosplay. And it's like we don't think like that anymore. But like I know personally for the next couple cons, I do want to be a little more relaxed and more casual. Honestly, like I would love to just throw on like some of my costumes that are just shorts and a jacket, just because I do want to be a little bit more comfortable the next couple more cons and not have to be stressed out about like giant hoop skirt and giant wig. Like let me at least have like one or two cons where I am just in running shorts. Like that's like a big thing I've been telling myself is just, let's be comfy for a couple cons and then let's go back into the like being as uncomfortable as physically possible and still being able to walk. I'm big on like if you want to be comfy at cons and then save your like bigger cosplays for photo shoots and stuff, that's on you. I love seeing those big cosplays at cons, but I do look at them and I wonder like how do you do that? Like how do you do that and not suffer, especially at Dragon Con where it's like 100 degrees out and people are in full sets of armor. Like whew, you have to be superhuman for that kind of stuff. But like um and then that's another thing is like I do get a little worried when I tell people, or a little anxious, I guess, when I tell people I'm a cosplayer because they might think that I am one of those people that does like amazing suits of armor and huge, larger than life stuff, and then they see my account and they're like, "Oh, you just do this." Like I feel like sometimes like my cosplay isn't at the level of the people who were like consider like professional cosplayers, and then they're like, "Oh, you just do this. I hope like kind of, I think for the most part, the mainstream kind of is like picking up that like anything can be a cosplay. Like you can literally do a Bob's Burgers cosplay, and that's as valid as the person that's doing like Dragon Age cosplay or one of those big things. So like for me, like I am as happy in some of my like smaller casual cosplays as I am in those like big massive cosplays that I spent like 300 hours on. So it's that's when I focus on myself. But as like the community wise, I think we've gotten a little bit better about like kind of respecting all forms of cosplay, whether it is like the big craftsmanship cosplays or it is like the ready made stuff. Like even I have a couple of like cosplays that I bought. I think I have about like three bought cosplays in my closet, but they are like the only three, the only three characters I've ever found that I've liked enough to and found a nice quality cosplay online. But I don't shame them at all because it is so nice to put on that cosplay and not have to have had to spend 300 hours of my life on it. And then sometimes those are like the costumes that I only wear like once or twice and then I'm tired of it. So that saves me a lot of time and effort when some of those cosplays are the same way. Even if I spend 300 hours on a cosplay, I might not end up liking it. And, you know, I might not end up having as much fun as I envisioned myself having. And then I kind of get upset because I'm like, that's 300 hours wasted. And I could have just bought it and then also just sold it and, you know, saved 300 hours of my life. But so like I have full respect for basically all spheres of cosplay, but I do feel a little anxious about like how the mainstream sees us. And I hope that kind of changes and evolves in the future more towards how the community itself sees ourselves.